welcome. My name is JB Handcroft, James Sibbards in real life, and it's my pleasure to moderate the panel today. This panel is about pioneers in virtual worlds. Good morning, Lorvon. Is there someone, I apologize, was there someone else who wanted to make an introduction about what this session is about?
JB, this is being transcribed, and I'm the transcriptionist. This is Lori Vaughn. So you don't need to respond to anything from Carolyn or myself.
Okay. All right, so
I'd be happy to give an intro to the group if you'd like me to, JB.
Yeah, thank you, Spiff. Let me go ahead and go through a little bit of text. So in this session, members from the Virtual Pioneers will discuss some of their major projects and contributions in virtual worlds. In particular, how they feel their accomplishments have taken us forward toward a new horizon in immersive experiences. And so I'd like to ask each of the panel members to introduce themselves. I have some bio information that I will put in text as well, so people who are text only can read it. Starting on the far left, then Spiff, would you go ahead and please introduce yourself, give a little bit about your background, and then following that, Daisy May, and then following that, Beth, please. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, and thank you everyone for being here. My name is Andy Wheelock in Real World. I'm a technology integrator for what's called the Winnie Rick, which is kind of a shared services division. So we go to schools all over Western New York and mostly do teacher tech talks. I started the Virtual Pioneers after coming into Second Life in about 2007. We started with just a small group of local teachers coming into Second Life, and I was really amazed at all the historical builds here. And really, the Virtual Pioneers took off from there, and we've been doing tours and meetings pretty much every Sunday from 5 p.m. Second Life time to 6 p.m. So we keep them light and lively, and we either do tours or we have discussions. So I'd love it if more people would join. My work with the Virtual Pioneers kind of led to my Open Sim project that I'm working on, and that was with help through a New York State Department of Education grant, and we've done 3 Open Sim tours called the Islands of Enlightenment, and these projects are developed for middle school students, and that's where Daisy May and I have done a lot of work together, but that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Andrew. Me?
Hello, I'm Daisy May, also known as Mary Howard, and I'm a 6th grade teacher in Grand Island, New York, which is a little pork chop of an island near Niagara Falls. And like I said, I teach 6th grade students, and Spiff sort of brought me along this journey into virtual worlds. And as a part of that, I began doing a little exploring with the Virtual Pioneers, which really kind of opens one's eyes to all of the potential that's out there in Second Life for using this sort of a platform with students and with education. And as part of that, I began working with Spiff with the Open Sim projects that he just mentioned briefly, and brought several 6th grade students into virtual worlds, and was able to really transform my instruction in my social studies classes in particular, using virtual environments and virtual worlds. So a lot of times I'll share my virtual world experiences on my blog, which is called yoursmarticles.blogspot.com. And I can put that in the local chat. But yeah, a lot of times I'm able to share experiences on my blog, and it just really has been a very transformational experience being part of Virtual Pioneers.
Excellent. Thank you, Daisy May. And now Beth, please.
I'm Beth O'Connell in real life, Beth Ghost Raven in virtual worlds. I'm a middle school librarian, which I've been a librarian since 1998, and I came to Second Life in 2012 to work with the VISTE group, the Virginia Society for Technology and Education, but I quickly found Virtual Pioneers, and Serena Offcourse, who helps Spiff run it, who unfortunately is not able to be here today because she's on a lovely vacation, helped me feel at home there. She helped me set my home point to Virtual Pioneers, and I just really feel at home with this group. We've gone some fabulous places, and I help with publicity when I can.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I was going to pick on Beth right at the very beginning because she confessed to me just before the session that she hadn't prepared any answers ahead of time, but I'm going to be a little bit gracious and not do that. So Beth, you're off the hook a little bit. So Spiff, since you founded the Pioneers, I'll address this to you if you could. What do you feel have been Virtual Pioneers' greatest accomplishment?
Well, there's a couple, and I think one of the ones that I'm most proud of is that we get new members all the time. That's primarily through the great work of our kind of social media posts, and Beth has been a big part of that, is getting the word out. And so we post through Facebook, Twitter, the Second Life events page, and through that we've really almost every meeting we'll see a new face or two or three show up, as well as a lot of our regular folks. So that's one of the things that I'm really proud of, is that we're always getting new members. It's not just a small group of people meeting. It's a new group every time, and I think pretty much for our tours, I would say on average we're getting 15 to 20 avatars coming in, learning about things. So that would be number one. Number two is just the quality of the tours, keeps getting better and better, and that's due to some great people that are doing work with history and culture within Second Life. So those are two of the biggest things, is we're getting new members, we're getting a lot of great people helping out, and the quality of the tours and the conversations that we have also.
Excellent. Thanks, Spiff. Do you prefer Spiff or do you prefer Andrew? And
in Second Life, I prefer Spiff. How's that?
I think that makes sense. I totally understand that
as well.
Good. So Daisy May, how about you? When you found Pioneers, what do you think, from your perspective and your involvement, what have been the greatest accomplishments?
The greatest accomplishment, I think, really comes from the enrichment that we've all experienced as a part of this. We go out there and we gather information, we collectively share, and really see the genuine passion that so many people have for building, for creating, for recreating history. And it's sometimes overwhelming, but it's also just so astounding and so inspirational. And I'm out there just wanting to share it with my students, just show them all of the opportunities that they can have as well. So I guess for me, that's been the biggest accomplishment of the group.
Excellent. Daisy, thank you. Okay, so Beth, you've had time now. It's your turn. How about you? What do you think the biggest accomplishments have been for Virtual Pioneers?
I think one of the greatest things we've been doing is bringing new educators into virtual worlds. We used the hook of having it apply to curriculum, but it's so much fun too. I think that's the other thing that we've really accomplished, is a real feeling of community. Like I said, I feel really at home at Virtual Pioneers and with Virtual Pioneers. And I think the meet and greets are very casual get-togethers, but we can talk about anything that comes to mind. Mostly we talk about education topics, but it's a good way to get to know other educators in a different setting, in an immersive setting. Back to you, JB.
Thank you. And thank you for your patience. I think I have my microphone and keyboard coordination mostly tamed for the morning now. So, Spiff, I have a follow-up question. So what has really surprised you the most about what's happened with and through the Virtual Pioneers group, and maybe different from how you originally envisioned?
Well, I think, I think like most great ventures, or and especially educational ventures, it's really kind of grown organically. So, like I had mentioned, our start was really a small start of just people coming in Second Life and touring different places. But then, we had people, build upon that. So we had people, that were active members, taking a role in, creating, building. We have our own space that was, we have a wonderful space on Edu Island, so a big shout out to Edu Islands. And, we have a great building that's kind of this historic feel to it, and that was just given freely from someone that they created it and passed it on to us. So we've had just this great, again, organic building, which I didn't foresee happening. I thought we would just be a group that would meet somewhere each week and do some things, but people have really powered the group forward. And really, it's easy for me as just one of the organizers, and I say that kind of laughingly. Serena does a lot of great work. Mary O'Brien, Serena, of course, she puts our tours together and always comes up with new tours. And so I guess that's the biggest surprise, is how just organically it built.
Excellent. Thank you. So our next question, and I hope I wasn't too hard on Beth. She seems to have crashed, but hopefully she'll get back in here shortly. The next question is, in what way do you feel that you've led the way in promoting education in virtual worlds? Daisy, would you like to start with that one?
Sure, I will start with that. And again, I mentioned before that I'm a sixth grade teacher, and as part of Virtual Pioneers and all of the learning and the growth that I had there, I was able to do the Open Sim adventures and projects that Smith talked about. And so I've been able to bring over 300 students into virtual worlds, and I'm actually getting ready to bring another 110 in the next couple of weeks. And the students have had a myriad of opportunities to learn about history through Immersion in the Middle Ages project. They've done a design and architectural project regarding Frank Lloyd Wright, which was amazing. And then my personal favorite actually is an invention convention that I did with the students, where they were allowed to design, build, market their own invention. I started doing scripting with the kids and really seeing them get hands-on and interactive.
That's awesome. Excellent. How about you, Spiff? And welcome back, Beth. Spiff, what kind of things, in what way do you think you've led the way in promoting education, or perhaps things in beyond education? But your turn, please.
Yeah, well, just seeing, what Mary talked about, and that's what I like to see. Is I think it's empowering. I think technology is empowering in general, but in these environments, I think can be very empowering. It's a huge learning curve for teachers, so I think that's our challenge educationally with virtual environments, is getting teachers to sign on, because it's a daunting task, and I think anyone who's worked in virtual environments can probably agree to that. And Mary, I think we've been through a lot of tree cutting, as I like to say, pioneers in this kind of thing. I mean, we've gone through a lot of bumps and bruises, and the technology works great, and sometimes it doesn't, and you have to kind of battle through those challenges. But I think what I've seen from the teachers that we've worked with is a real, empowering sense, and they've we've fought through some challenges, but the takeaway is when you see that magic look on your kids' faces who've seen something totally different than they've ever experienced in school before, and they walk away saying, wow, and you see that magic moment. And I know Mary has seen it even more than I have, but I was just working with a school the other day, and he posted a tweet saying, kids are staying after school on Friday, totally voluntarily to do more work. And I mean, when do you see that on a Friday, and it's even sunny here in Western New York, which is kind of a rarity. So here were kids staying in virtual worlds and exploring. Not that we don't want them to get outside, but it was a happy, I guess, moment to see that kids wanted to stay in school and do extra work in virtual environments. So.
Excellent. I totally understand that. As a father, I think that's a great moment when you see students, children sort of come alive and wake up to something like that. So we talked about promoting education. If you had to provide some ideas or suggestions to other teachers, other educators about promoting education in virtual worlds, where would you suggest that they start first? You mentioned, is it curriculum? Is it working with administration? Is it budgets? Is it technology? Where's a good place to start? Daisy, would you like to start with that?
Sure. Kind of formulating my thoughts on it, but I think first is creating a culture of fearlessness. There tends to be a great deal of fear surrounding taking risks with technology and education. We are, sometimes compartmentalized and locked into our little box, and technology is viewed as this, sort of an add-on. And I think when we begin promoting a culture of fearlessness, and begin realizing that, put the technology first, put the virtual environments first. And if people could see that, and if we promote this and show it and demonstrate it and lead by example, people will realize how astounding and how amazing it is, just from the students' excitement, the students' engagement, as we just talked about, and the learning that takes place. It's just that ultimate STEM opportunity using virtual worlds. I can't rave about it enough in terms of the experiences that I've had with the students and just seeing them light up. So lead by example and promote a culture of fearlessness.
Excellent. Thank you, Daisy. That was a great answer. And for myself and for the other panel members, if I could ask you to slow down and speak a little slowly so they can do the text transcription, I think that would be helpful for everyone. And I apologize, Daisy. I think I'm going off script a little bit. I want to keep everyone on the edge of their seats and with impromptu questions a little bit. And so Beth, I have a question for you. Can you talk about your successes in promoting education? Could you tell us a story of something that happened that you would consider a win in terms of education?
Well, I think we've gotten a lot of teachers into Second Life, and I think that's where you need to start. The admin part is a really hard part, and that has to happen before you can bring any children in. And I'm not saying necessarily into Second Life, but into virtual worlds at all. But getting teachers in here to see what we do, and Machinima can play a part in that too. They don't actually have to be in world. They can look at a video of what we've been doing in world, and Spiff does a lot of that, both with Virtual Pioneers and with the other projects that he's done, posted things online. So we can all share them with our staff and see what they can do. I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, I think it does. That's an excellent point. So you bring up the concept of a different kind of technology that is for many people more approachable, like online videos, going to YouTube or someplace and watching a video so they get a taste of the online immersive experience. And it makes me wonder, so Beth, I think you did that on purpose, so congratulations. It brings us to our next question is, what do you, with regard to technologies specifically, so what do you expect is the future of virtual pioneers as technologies change? Spiff, how about you?
Well, I'm really excited about the possibilities of Oculus Rift and how that can I think once that becomes an affordable technology, I think that has some real potential, especially with what my focus, again, my passion is mostly history, but I think with literature as well. I think when we can combine, the power of Oculus Rift, that kind of viewing where, you can turn your head and you'll look around the corner of a place. I think that's where the next big frontier is going, and I think that'll be a really exciting development for kids, and again, give us that extra sense of what was history like by being able to kind of turn your head around the corner and really look. And I think with mesh builds as well, I'm sure many of you for the Second Lifers here know that there's a huge artistic community that's really starting to grow here in Second Life, and I think that's also going to pull into the other work we do in say open sim environments, and it's going to make some real detailed history sims that are going to look and feel like those time periods, and I think that's really exciting.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Daisy, I'd like to ask you a slightly different question, which is really, what technologies do you think will have the most impact on virtual worlds in the next few years?
So what technologies will have the most impact on virtual worlds in the next few years? Make sure I got the question. Okay. I do agree. I want to say what Spiff said, but I do agree that, I'm more of a Google Cardboard person. I've been leaning that direction because it's a more cost-effective approach to that immersive experience that virtual worlds are providing for students. And I think the augmented reality approach, either Oculus Rift, Google Cardboard, will be one technology that we'll see changing. And I'm actually going to go back to something that Beth talked about, is those machinima. I think when we can get students in virtual environments, and I'm an ELA teacher, and I think creating storylines and storytelling opportunities for students, I do believe is a very valuable learning experience. So it's not saying it's going to be an additional futuristic technology, but I do think it's a different approach that I haven't taken, and I think many people haven't quite explored yet with virtual environments. So I think those are my two. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. I really appreciate that. And Beth, how about you? In your experience in the school system, when you think about technologies, is that something that you look forward to with regard to new things that can help? Or is it something that, and I don't mean to be negative here, but as technology changes, does that mean yet another challenge with regard to funding and getting permission and budgets and training, et cetera?
My particular district is really on the crest of the wave, I think, as far as technology adoption and integration and training. However, they're not using virtual worlds at all. I use Minecraft with a games club after school, and I've used it for a 1-week course within the school year outside of the curriculum. But aside from that, we're not using virtual worlds at all. So my biggest challenge is getting the word out, sharing it with teachers, helping them find the time to be able to see what it is. So it's not a technology challenge so much as a professional challenge.
Interesting. Okay. I have an interesting perspective on this because being so very Second Life and open sim centric, and then having worked in educational projects, I initially bristled at the idea of people using Minecraft and World of Warcraft or League of Legends or Twitch TV or something, because I was sort of a purist. Spiff, when you think about other kinds of technologies, other platforms, what's your perspective on that? Are you primarily approaching all of this from the SL and OpenSim perspective, or is it multi-platform in those other things that I've mentioned?
That's a great question. For me, because of the time-consuming nature of OpenSim or just the projects we're doing, I'm really focusing most of my work for K-12 in OpenSim. Of course, my professional work is more Second Life, but you have to give a huge hat tip to Minecraft because it's brought not only younger kids into the virtual environment piece, but it's also brought an awareness for parents and even teachers to the potential. Because I think, Second Life, with its wide open nature, got a reputation as kind of the Wild West of virtual worlds, and you can't do education here. And so Minecraft, I think, so people weren't even looking at Second Life as a viable K-12 possibility. So when Minecraft came along, it really, again, opened the eyes to parents and teachers that, wow, there's some real potential here. And I think Minecraft can be a huge starting point for us. And I think, as kids want to start building more realistic builds, that will bring them back, hopefully, to more open sim environments. And, and again, using Second Life, I think, I'm going to go on maybe an old saw here, but I think what Second Life is doing, especially with the artistic community, and also, just making gaming and mysteries that are kind of open-end mysteries, I think there's some huge power and potential and future there. And as we bring in those other technologies, like the Oculus Rift, and if we can get Google Cardboard as well, part of it, that'll be really exciting. And I think we'll be back to bringing education in virtual worlds wide scale.
Excellent, thank you. So Daisy, I'd like to ask you a question, which is from a personal standpoint, how have you both grown and changed over the time that you've been active in Second Life? And I mean that really from a professional standpoint primarily, but anything else you'd like to comment on is fine.
Sure. With Virtual Pioneers, what's just amazing is you can see, the artisans and the historians and the craft that has been developed over the course of the life of Second Life, so that you find that amazing. Just like, how can these people do what they do? And I'm such a newbie and just approaching it from such a new perspective, that you see the potential, and then coming into the classroom and bringing 10-year-olds into virtual environments, you want so much, to put all of that creativity and all of that power into their hands. And it's allowed me to just really see the potential in a 10-year-old student. They teach me just as much as I teach them. The students really have changed me because they've been in these virtual worlds. I see them asking me questions, and I'm like, yeah, why can't we do that? Let's try, instead of saying, no, this is our lesson for today. Someone will say, well, I'd like to animate this, and I'd like to add a script here. And instead of me saying, well, I don't really know how to do that, it's more like, let's figure this out. And I get excited. I get just as excited as the students. So I guess, your question saying, how has it changed me? It just really has, not that I never thought students had potential, but it's almost mind-blowing how it speaks to each student's strength and each student's vision, and just reaches them on such an extraordinary level.
Excellent. Wow, that's exciting. I love the energy and enthusiasm that you're bringing to all of this, Daisy May. That's awesome. For Beth, for you, how have you both grown and changed over the time that you've been active in these kind of platforms and technologies?
When I first started out using Second Life for professional things, which is when I started using Second Life, period, I was a solo librarian. So this was my way of connecting with other educators for professional development, basically, because I didn't have anyone else in my school who did what I did. So I was connecting with other librarians in Second Life. And then I started connecting with other teachers, and it just kind of mushroomed out from there. I think the biggest way I've grown is realizing how much I really enjoy marketing and publicizing events. And I realized I've been doing that since I was a teenager. So that's something I want to continue to explore while still being a librarian. Librarianship is almost like a cult. Once you've been indoctrinated into it, you think about things in a different way. So I continue to bring that in. I think that's it.
Excellent. I have to confess, I've never thought about study of library science as being a cult, but if you say so, then okay. So, so I have a question that's kind of related to that. Let's start with you, Spiff. What would you say to if you had a chance to go back in time and talk to your SL avatar as a newbie from today? What would you tell your SL avatar newbie that you know today?
Well, I guess, I'm thinking of this more as the educator sign is that, stay with it. There's going to be some bumps in the road. Again, I've gotten, I think all of us in virtual environments and education, when we talk about what we do, you get a lot of strange looks from your colleagues. So I think, if you look at, say, Carol Dweck's mindset work, I think all of us in this line of work have to have that mindset work of forging ahead, knowing that you're going to get the slings and arrows of criticism and, controversy. So I think you just have to stick with it, learn little by little. There's so much possibility, and again, that's what I love about it. There's so much creativity and possibilities within virtual environments that you can't get with just everything. There's from scripting to building to making, games, and there's so much here that you can do. Just start small. So those would be the two things. There's going to be some hurdles. Keep a positive mindset, and learn little by little, and before you know it, you've got a pretty good tool belt of cool stuff here.
Excellent. Thank you. And Daisy May, how about you? What would you say if your SL avatar of today could go back in time and speak to your SL avatar as a newbie? What advice would you give her?
I would tell her, number one, give up RL for a little while because you're going to be totally consumed. I would say, number two, find a mentor or a guide. Serena, she's just so amazing in SL, guiding you along the way, teaching you the rights from the wrongs and the what to do's and the where to go's, the who to avoid. So I would tell her that. I would also tell her, don't experiment with changing outfits in public places. And, bringing those kind of thoughts and ideas to just the open sim that I've done with my students. It's something that Spiff mentioned earlier. I would, tell the teacher that's doing it with the students, just understand that there will be bumps. Like Spiff said, there will be hurdles. There's going to be glitches and mistakes and unexpected things. You need to roll with it. Be fearless. So I think that would be what I would tell her.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think Beth has stepped away. She's AFK for just a few minutes. So I'm going to come back to her. Spiff, our next question is, to what extent, let's drill into the specifics about Virtual Pioneers some more, because I think it's a fascinating group. To what extent do you feel that Virtual Pioneers has really distinguished itself from other groups?
Well, I think we're, again, through pretty much through the group's collaborative efforts, we're able to promote ourselves, we're able to go to new tours, we're able to really highlight some of the great work that's going on, especially in Second Life. And so I think we've just developed a nice community, and a community of people that support each other and like talking about ideas even beyond, virtual environments. Again, our fireside chats are usually pretty pretty fun and good conversation, and we'll occasionally explore, even different spots outside of historical sims. But so I guess it's that sense of community. I think that's what makes us kind of different. We have a really, I think, comfortable feel. I think people, when they come once, will come back again. So I think that's a tribute to just the comforting nature of our group and the fact that we're pioneers in the sense of we're always looking for new and creative things. And again, the events that we have, from costume parties to even just sometimes just letting our virtual hair down and having dances and fashion shows, or sometimes just good old fashioned fun. So we mix it up and make it a fun community.
Excellent, thank you. So you mentioned fireside chats, and so I'm going to ask you to sort of promote and summarize Virtual Pioneers a little bit, if in order to attract new members. Can you walk us through an example, a more specific, detailed example of a Virtual Pioneer project or event?
Is that for me, JB?
Yeah, I apologize. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Sure. Well, just to talk about our, if we don't have a tour, we usually have, I guess I think of them as fireside chats. We have a little fire pit that's kind of like a campground. And so we'll have just conversations. People will come in, we'll do a quick shout out and let everybody know. As far as our events go, again, Serena does a great job of mixing the type of events. We just recently had a fashion show, a historical fashion show, where people dressed in costume and then actually talked about the costume as well. We've had just some kind of winter balls, or I think we had one that was a 1920s themed kind of swimming pool party where so I think those just add to kind of the frolic sometimes, and just the whimsical nature, and sometimes it's good just to have those fun things, but it's always tied to a historical or cultural kind of background. So and again, our tours, we've tried to have different eras, different genres, different locations, from the Wild West to last week we did Paris 1900. So we just really explore all different areas, and some are just really fantastic, and we come back to them a couple of years later. But we're also noticing just there's always a treasure trove of new places coming on, and some really knowledgeable people. So again, I could probably keep going with that question, but I'll wind it up there.
No, that's good. Thank you, Smith. So I noticed that you're in historical costume. Can you give us a quick rundown of what that's about and where that came from? Why you dressed as a pirate? Are you a pirate today?
Well, I chose this one just because of the kind of pirate theme that's going on in the virtual world, the Best Practices Conference here. So that's why I did that. But I have a great Viking costume that I really like. I've also got a very accurate British officer outfit that I tend to like, and I when I did a keynote here a few years ago, I wore that one. So again, I've got a lot of great costumes in my inventory, and I try to sometimes when I do presentations, I try to mix costumes up without avoiding the dangers that Mary talked about before, but Daisy May, I should say.
Daisy May, how about you? Back to the Virtual Pioneer events or activities. What have been your favorite Virtual Pioneer events or activities?
My favorites. We have gone to Amsterdam in World War II and explored the city streets, and hopped on motorcycles and sped around the streets. And we've gone to, as Biff just mentioned, just spending an hour gunslinging in the wild, wild west. Lots of fun, and visiting Greece, and a truly recreated Greek community. I think it looked like Mykonos, Greece, and just again seeing how astounding the builds are and seeing how they incorporated the build and the history. It's always that history component that is so fascinating to me. When we go on these trips, people take us, the creators are taking us on these tours, and it's like going to a museum and having a guided tour by a docent, and they'll say, this is the history behind this building. This is why we built it this way. Take a look at this person. He was the founder, so it's fun. And yet there's just so much learning and so much passion by the people that are sharing all of the different things with us. And sometimes we do, digress into, motorcycle races, and other times, we sit and absorb and we learn, and then we debrief by the fireside. And yeah, having the creator and the expert on the sim is amazing, because you can hear their passion and learn so much from them. And you're amazed, like, how do they choose this, and how do they know so much about it? So, because some of it is a very maybe minute detail about history or a community or something that they're focused on, and you just learn so much. So I kind of rambled on a little bit, but there's so many favorites, it's really difficult to choose.
That's an excellent example. And you mentioned docent. One of my daughters was a docent for a historical gallery at the Smithsonian for a while, and the ability to talk and interact with someone in costume and in character who, pulls you back into that historical time frame with clothing and language, and is really pretty amazing. And seeing it for me, seeing it in a movie is one thing, but experiencing it, quote unquote, as an avatar person walking through it is really something else. So, Beth, are you back and able to take questions?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. So, so I guess I'll ask you the same question then. What have been your favorite virtual pioneer events or activities?
I think my favorite have been the tours that have been sort of fantasy oriented. Sometimes we go to medieval sims, or we've been to a Viking sim that was mythology based. That was a lot of fun. It's not specifically historical in terms of real life, but it is part of the historical culture. It's not just fantasy that somebody just made up. I love my favorite time periods, medieval and especially Victorian. I've gotten really interested in Victorian from being a resident in the independent state of Caledon in Second Life. So I was able to give a tour of Caledon a couple years ago for Virtual Pioneers. And anything like that is just so much fun to be immersed in that environment and to interact with people who are role playing from that historical time period. I think that's about it.
Excellent. No, I can definitely relate to that. I was a resident of Steelhead for a while, and I'm not sure if that was Victorian or Edwardian, but I did take a lot of flack from people who claimed I didn't change my clothing often enough. It's just shopping.
And have a lot of difficulty with that.
Shopping just is just not my thing. Yeah, Spiff, I think Steelhead is really pretty amazing. So let's talk. So we've mentioned history several times, which is I think I love it. One of my daughters has a degree in history. I'm a proud father, and I love to brag, so forgive me for that. But let's look ahead for a little bit. So what do you see as the near-term future for Virtual Pioneers, and what are your plans for, let's say, 2016 and perhaps into 2017? Daisy May, would you like to start with that?
I would probably turn and look to our fearless leader, Spiff, for what the plans are. And certainly, as Spiff mentioned, Serena, of course, often paves the way for a lot of our experiences. So, I think the future is to continue to be Star Trek like explorers. You never know which time, you never know which place we're going to land up in, but ultimately, we're just going to keep on exploring as virtual pioneers. And as an educator, I'm going to do my best to take what I'm learning and seeing and integrate it into what I do with my students in the classroom.
Excellent. Thank you, Desiree. And so I apologize. I kind of put you on the spot with that one. Spiff, you have a follow-up? What do you see in the near-term future? What kind of exciting events or activities are coming up? And where do you see things happening in the rest of 2016 and 2017?
Well, I think one of the beauties of this group is that we're so organic and we let things kind of, develop, on its own. So we don't necessarily, we do have an annual meeting where we talk about what we'd like to do and kind of the future of the group. I think the power of the group, and I've mentioned this, several times, is really the community that we've developed. And so, our members push and explore. I put into chat, one of our meet and greets, Day Miami came and showed us, we went to Blue Mars and looked at Stonehenge. So we looked at other virtual environments again. And I think, Mary's work and, and the work I've been doing in OpenSim, it's kind of branched out to us. So the Virtual Pioneers kind of serves as a hub or a springboard for our members to push beyond. So I think that's kind of our goal, is to keep, talking about what we're doing, having, exploring new sims, looking to the future as far as, how those technologies such as Oculus Rift and in Google Cardboard, if that's going to be a possibility as well. And Mary actually brought a really great point about machinima. I think that might be something that we really should explore, because there's so much rich potential in getting kids to do storytelling and creativity in that way. And again, I feel, artistically as well as historically, we can push boundaries that way as well. So I think the beauty of our group is that we've got a community and we've got an organic nature to it. So we keep pushing, and we don't maybe set a true course, because the course is going to find us, if that makes sense.
Can I add one thing here? I apologize.
Yes, of course.
You have to kind of imagine behind the scenes too. We'll all go on this exploration and see something truly astounding. And then it's almost like it's professional development in a virtual world. And then Spiff and I, behind the scenes, after it's done, we'll be like, oh my goodness, did you see how they're doing that? We need to give that a try. Or did you see how they demonstrated that? We need to do this. And so you get this, this excitement and this energy, when we're finished, because of what it is that we've seen or explored and seen how someone else did it. So it's kind of a way to think of it. It's like virtual professional development for educators that are implementing it into their own classrooms.
Excellent. Thank you. So that's an interesting, when I heard you say something, let me feed it back to you and see if I heard it right, that you experience things in an event, and then afterward, there's sort of an aha where the observer in you says, oh, did you see what just happened there? And what I hear you saying is that's the organic aspect of the experience. That sometimes things happen apart or separate from what you had planned was going to happen, and yet there's aha moments and learning and magic. I think that's an amazing thing. So it brings to mind the notion of the immersive experience where we're all in, we're relating to what's happening, and then there's the separate observer part of us. Spiff, I want to come back to you about community, because you've mentioned that a couple times. So it seems to be that's one of the very strong aspects of a virtual environment is community for it to be successful. So what have you done that helps enable community, and what would you recommend to others who want to develop community?
Well, I think the power is going beyond just the virtual environment. So again, we connect through Twitter, we connect through Google Plus and Facebook, and so extending beyond just Second Life. And so even the person that may not, our hope is even that teacher who may not want to dig into Second Life can at least appreciate and see the potential there. Again, I think Minecraft has been a big eye-opener for parents and teachers, so we hope to kind of build off of that piece. But so I think an answer to your question in a short way is just to reach beyond just Second Life and find other avenues to reach out. And again, Beth has been a great help in getting the word out for us through those networks.
So interesting. So I was making a short list here that I put in chat of different technology and platforms of Minecraft and Machinima, OpenSim and SL, things like Unity 3D, Linden Labs Project Sansar, Philip Rosedale's startup called Hi-Fi. This seems like it's overwhelming in a way. I'm a technologist, so I have a very skewed view. I'm not an educator, and I'm a parent, but I'm not an educator. I don't work in the education system, so I have a skewed view. Add into that mix, what guidance would you give educators with regard to picking or choosing aspects from that list of kind of technologies and platforms? Spiff, do you want to take a shot at that? And then Beth, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question that's related if you're available.
Sure. I think if there's one benefit, and I think it's been a really, I think, great benefit to education in general is, come back to Carol Dweck's mindset, the growth mindset work. And I think start there, maybe with Carol's work, and even just go online and see, the elements of a growth mindset and overcoming obstacles and sticking with your work and seeing positives. So I think that's number one is start with an open mind and an idea of growth, and then start simple. I think all of us here can know the experiences of the newbie and doing, Mary mentioned the clothing, the wardrobe malfunctions that that you can have, and know that you're going to have those awkward moments, but to battle through those. And again, I think all of us, again, I know in the K-12 world, the naysayers are the toughest ones to go through, that see your work as, you're just doing something whimsical and not education related, and battling through the naysayers, because they can get pretty ugly, I think. So you have to battle through those.
Excellent, thank you. So Beth, if I think about that list of platforms and technologies that I listed there for, as a librarian working in the school system, then have you had a need to help educate other people on what these things are to begin with, or what their potential is? How have you gone about that? Can you talk about that just a little bit?
I've had the opportunity in World to talk about some of these things with other educators. In my own job, I've talked about Machinima a little with some people. I've talked about Minecraft with a lot of people. I've talked about using Second Life for professional development, but I think they're so put off by just the word Second Life that their minds close up. So I need to show them some examples of how this could be used. Unity 3D, I think, has some potential. The other two, Project Sansar and High Fidelity, I don't have any experience with. I'm sure that we'll be learning about them. I'm looking forward to trying out Adorable, the virtual world for students that we saw demonstrated yesterday or talked about yesterday. That seems like it has some potential too, especially for using with K-12 students. I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Daisy, I have a question I'd like to address to you. Hang on a second. So, as you think about activity, virtual pioneers, events, or activities, how do you measure an event or activity? How do you come back and think about or summarize its effectiveness or its success? Is it tied back to specific educational goals or rubric, or is it fun, or what's the element of success? Why would we want to do that again or not for you?
So specific to virtual pioneers, measure. I guess I don't view it that way. We're virtual pioneers. We're viewing the possible. We're out there roaming around trying to see what is possible, what can be done, what can we garner from our experiences, how can we apply any of those experiments or experiences into an educational setting. So, if I take a moment after an experience to reflect, then and say, you know what, I really liked the way this person used the note card to explain this, or I liked that script that the person used to do that, and I immediately have that light bulb go off, and I think, oh, let me add that to the open sim, or let me have a student build that or put that in, or explore if that's a possibility. Then I suppose that's my own personal measure of success of a virtual pioneer event.
Excellent, thank you. And so, Beth, how about you? When you think about an activity or an event, and perhaps you've spent time planning the logistics for an outing and downloading things and getting things set up, how do you think about it? Sort of the post-activity review, after activity review. Was it what factors do you measure it against with regard to success, or whether you would repeat it again?
First, I look at how many people showed up. That's a measure of how successful the outreach was, and then I look at the engagement. I think the big deal about virtual worlds is the immersion, and that leads to emotional engagement, which I think is the key to learning. Really, you have to be involved emotionally with your topic and the information in order to retain it and use it. So I look at the comments that people put in chat, the things that they say, what they do. If people you look at the avatars around you, and if they're exploring and interacting with the environment, I consider that a success. That's it.
Awesome. So, Daisy, I have a question. You mentioned this. I think I heard you mention something about a 6th grade class earlier, and so I would like to get some more information on that in terms of the reactions they had, their experiences, and can you tell me what that was all about?
That's a great question, because, and this is actually something Spiff and I have talked about, the very first time, and it was 4 years ago, the very first time I brought students into virtual worlds. I wish I had a camera on the students. You get this kind of this collective gasp throughout the classroom, and this energy in the room, and they're twittering back, talking back and forth, and just they can't believe it, and they just get so excited. And it's just this amazing experience. And so I've never actually set up a camera to capture those moments. So the first thing is the collective excitement, And it is funny too, because I pretty much suspend the day that I introduce virtual environments to the kids, and suspend knowing that there really will be no educational goals met on that particular day, because they are jumping up and down with their avatars. They'll climb whatever they can possibly climb. They'll try to go through walls. These are 10-year-olds. They'll bump into each other, they'll push each other, so you sort of have to just let them get it all out of their system, because it's kind of hysterical to watch. They go nuts on that first day. And then from there, you introduce sort of the purpose. So they understand that there's a purpose to our, virtual environment experience. And what's even more telling is not my actual students' response. It's the other classes' responses where the teachers aren't doing virtual environment work. Those students, they come in and they ask my students to show them what they're doing, and they want to see it and know, and that's just not fair. Why can't we do this? And I feel bad because I've invited every colleague, into what I'm doing, and it's difficult to get, to share that, but we keep plugging away trying to share it. So that's a big part of it, And then I want to add one more thing too, because the students approach it at a level at which they want. And I understand that they're not all going to be builders. They're not all going to be scripters, and Spiff and I have talked a great deal about this divide that you see. And in my head, I always expected it was going to be all of my girls will be into the outfits and the appearance and the dress and what they're going to wear. And then the boys will be my builders and my explorers and my scripters. But it's not like that. The boys get so into dwarfing themselves and making themselves really fat or really odd looking, and they do. And then the girls, they do get into the clothing and the outfits. But some of my best builders, in particular last year, were the girls. I mean, they recreated Frank Lloyd Wright's homes, into such detail that I was blown away, with gardens and fences and and ceilings and beams and all these different things that were so detailed. So, the experiences are kind of never what I anticipate with the kids. But the one thing I can anticipate is that exciting. And yes, Beth, shoppers, they do. They want to gather things and get things and obtain things. So really, just excitement would be the bottom line, truly.
Interesting. That was an amazing answer. Thank you, Daisy May. So one of the things I heard you say is that by coming into a virtual world, by being your avatar, by being someone else, you're seeing people who get to depart or be freed from what would otherwise be societal norms or societal expectations, and they get to be somebody else. They get to live out a different kind of day. I think that's amazing. To me, that's a magical thing when you give somebody that kind of freedom. So, Spiff, did you have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I see Gentle Heron in the audience, and the work she's done with virtual abilities has been just world class. But kind of following along with what Daisy May was saying is this is an opportunity also for kids that may have never had a real moment in their class where they've just had this explosion of creativity and something new. So virtual worlds kind of taps into some abilities that traditional schooling may not have tapped into. And I know Mary has a great story about one of her students who, when she started gamifying her class, the transformation that happened there. The other thing that I'd like to just throw out there I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but beyond the choir this is a real opportunity. And I think virtual environments, one of the great things is it really can provide a bridge from school to the kind of gaming culture that's out there. There's a huge gaming culture with our kids, and there's huge potential there for us as educators to pull that gaming group in, but and also pull in what we want to, which is the great content. So I think virtual environments are the greatest bridge to pull those two things together so that teachers can pull in their great content and kids can bring their gaming skills together, and we can meet, maybe not always in the middle, maybe the kids' tech skills wins out, but I think we can pull in that great content that we want, and kids will go to great lengths to keep going with it.
I have one more little itty bitty thing to add. I'm so sorry.
No, please.
It's kids 10-year-olds bring into the virtual environment the silly that you don't necessarily see with adults. And that's what makes it so, whimsical and interesting. I have a couple stories where, I had a student come talk to me, and she's standing right in front of me. And I said, "Hi, Abby, how are you?" And she says, "Hi, I'm a ball." And she had literally just put this huge sphere around her body. And I'm like, "I noticed that. Why are you a ball?" And she said, "I don't know." And then she walked away. And those are the kinds of experiences you have. They'll have something weird connected to their head. They don't care. They'll just walk around like that, and they're more than able to continue to function and do what they need to do, regardless of what they look like. And to me, it's just so cute and interesting.
I think that's awesome. I do recall somebody putting a ball on my head when I first came into Second Life, or it was a follower or something, but I think that was a completely different experience. So Beth, I have a related question. Spiff brought up the issue of gaming, which I'm biased because I create games. So, but as a technologist, I have a very skewed view of that. From a classroom standpoint, how do you bring this focus and energy about gaming how do you harness it and bring it into the classroom or into your aspect of education?
I think one of the things I try to bring in is that I don't like didactic resources. I don't like didactic literature where it's designed just to teach you something. I think games are the same way. We need to have games that are worth playing for themselves and that are not designed around teaching a particular thing.
Interesting. That reminds me of the difference between Second Life, essentially as a platform where you come in and do whatever, versus when I was trying to explain Second Life to one of my sons, he said, "Well, what's the goal? How do you win? How do you know when you're done?" So it's a different kind of environment. So Spiff, I think, well, Beth, you said to me, just as an aside, that you had a slide you wanted to use. Are you ready to do that now?
Sure, I can show that. Up on the screen right now, there is a picture of our logo. This is Spiff, and this is probably from, 2007, Spiff? If the two of you want to chime in on any of these pictures, go ahead.
Yeah, that's an oldie but a goodie.
And that's on our Weebly. I don't think you've mentioned our Weebly, but if you want to paste the link to that into chat, that would be helpful. This is us around the campfire. I think there's more than just me sitting there. I'm having a hard time with my camera. There we go. That's our meet and greet. We have a campfire. And as Pathfinder Lester commented one time, fires have an atavistic appeal. They really draw us in on a primitive level. And something about having a campfire or a fireplace in Second Life gives us a feeling of coziness and of almost like a storytelling atmosphere. Let's see. I thought I had more slides in here. JB, let me get back to you with that.
When Mary and I worked with the Frank Lloyd Wright Darwin Martin House, one of Frank Lloyd Wright's principles, and Mary has a great machinima on it. One of his quotes is, "The hearth has to be the centerpiece of the home. Mary, you want to say more about that one?
Sure. I was trying to share the link here in the chat. So the Beth said something that's kind of interesting, and it's a really tricky thing because we're teachers are living in such an app-tastic world. They want an app that they can use to help instruct their kids. And I'm not going to say all teachers, obviously, but there's so many that need plug and play, and so there's part of me that's perfectly happy with a plug and play resource for teachers if it's virtual environments. And I think that's what Spiff and I tried to do with our Heir of the King. It wasn't something that the kids were inventing or creating. It was more approachable. It was front loaded per se. The front load was exhausting as we designed an entire Middle Ages curriculum around a gamified platform so that you could just drop in a student and an avatar and they could consume. And so going from, I loved it. So going from that consumption concept, which I think is what Beth was alluding to more of a production concept, even for me, was a very difficult but very liberating experience and sort of frightening. So we went from, okay, here everything's built into this, do this, read these note cards, do this. And then we kind of liberated ourselves and we did the Frank Lloyd Wright experience, which was a little bit of research to build background for the students, learning all about Frank Lloyd Wright. We took them on a kind of a Google tour of all of Frank Lloyd Wright's work. And we taught them all of these concepts related to Frank Lloyd Wright, like Spiff said, a central hearth, abstract design, stained glass windows, and how his work transitioned over time. And then we said, okay, boys and girls, here's your land. Now go build. And what a powerful experience that is for students. What a scary experience that is for a teacher. So, we're really at odds here. We want teachers to take on, virtual environments and virtual environment challenges, but we're working with a collective of teachers that are more comfortable with, plug and play, something that they can hold in their hand and say, oh, here's what you're going to do, rather than let's see what they can do. And most teachers, I'm not sure, are ready for that yet. So, when the switch is going to happen and when it's going to take place and how long it's going to take is really a big question.
That's an interesting. Yeah. Why? I want to ask a follow-up. Why? And perhaps you said it, but I missed it. Why are teachers afraid of that? Why does this cause fear? Where does the fear come from with some of these new things?
Oh,
is it because? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, don't make me say it. Don't make me say it. The Common Core.
Okay.
Yeah, where are my standards? I have to meet my standards. I'm getting measured based on my standards. I do. Sorry, I had to say that word, but yeah.
Okay. All right. It's interesting. Again, it betrays my technologist perspective, but I would think that the deterministic aspect, that it's more predetermined and known what the events are going to be, A, B, C, versus X, Y, Z question mark. We don't know what's going to happen. I think the unknown, the what could happen is pretty amazing. You mentioned construction versus consumption, I think, aspect. Do you think, is there with regard to future technologies and future platforms, do you think that there's a construction and immersion versus consumption aspect of that? I'm interested in your thoughts, Daisy, and then Spiff, if I could follow up with you on the same question.
I think Beth wants to interject something. Let me let her have the mic for a second, and then I'll answer your question.
Okay, cool.
When you were asking about gaming, I think one of the key things that our teachers don't have yet is the willingness to fail. They don't realize that failing is not only okay, but encouraged. Because if we're not failing, we're not learning. And I think teachers don't understand that. And that's what brings some of that fear about. We're afraid to fail because we don't realize that we need to fail with our students in order for all of us to learn.
Oh,
That's
wow. Oh, I think that's brilliant. That failing is okay. What I heard you say is that failing is okay as a part of learning, and that teachers are learning. So teachers need to be able to fail safely, and that's awesome. Cool. Thank you. I love it how my panelists are conspiring in the background behind me. That Daisy says no. Beth wants to say something, and so. It's like herding cats. So Daisy, did you want to weigh in on that constructionist versus consumption aspect of emerging technologies, or was it a different aspect of emerging technologies that you'd like to speak about?
I think that's precisely, it is a shift that we're seeing. And I think we talked about it before. I think Minecraft truly led the way there when it comes to seeing what interests the students and interests children in general, because that was what was so amazing about Minecraft. They could manipulate it, mold it, change it, create in it, your digital Legos per se. And so it's definitely something that speaks to students, but again, does it speak to the teachers? I think sometimes they don't, they don't understand that it is a learning experience, and, that they can do these things and they can learn. So it's a challenging shift.
Cool. Spiff?
It's interesting. I had a great opportunity to interview Danielle Feinberg from Pixar Studios, and when she talked to me about, I think we're all kind of fascinated by Pixar and Google and some of the, a lot of the high-tech companies and how they're doing things, or just the business companies in general, how they're changing the dynamic of the workplace. Mm-hmm. And one of the things she had said to me is, how Pixar, first of all, they have the goal of making a great movie that people will want to come and see, and that's a beautiful goal, and you can see that I think they achieve that with almost every picture they put out. But what she talked about is the fact that you have people of just varying skills and abilities and differences, and they all come together for a great cause. And when I think of how school works, we often don't have those kind of those frameworks, with the exception of the High School Musical. And if you think about, for anyone who's experienced the High School Musical, that really kind of pulls that whole concept together of, you've got kids who are good at music, you've got kids who are good at singing, you've got kids who are good at art, you've got kids who are good at lighting and sound, and you pull all of these amazing talents together for a great cause, and it produces the magic and all the learning and skill work and the true college and career readiness components come together in that moment. And I think the work that we do with virtual environments has that potential of pulling that exact same concept, the High School Musical concept of learning, where we can have kids doing scripting and coding and developing and building and scripting and movie making, and we can harness that all with some great curriculum built around it. The amazing potential for both students and teachers is there, and I think we need to keep pushing that idea, is that virtual environments can be really powerful learning adventures.
Excellent. No, I totally agree. I think that was a great answer. Thank you. And you mentioned High School Musical. That is definitely where I learned that singing was not my thing, and there were a lot of other people who agreed with me that singing was not my thing, and they really wanted me to be focusing on lighting and tech and so on. So, Beth, you mentioned that you have a reser that you put out. What are we offering to our studio audience today? I feel like I'm giving away something on The Price is Right.
Yes, a new car. No, actually, right. I have a new car I can give you all if you want. But there is a giver in front of the podium that has information about the Virtual Pioneers, if anyone would like to click on it. You're all welcome to join us anytime. If you'd like to join the group, we can invite you to that. It's an open group.
Excellent, great. And I'm going to confess my ignorance that I think I spend so much of my time looking at scripts and programming. I actually didn't know that. I'll confess that I didn't know Virtual Pioneers exist, and please forgive me for that. I know I'm going to hear about this afterward from Beth, who's a friend of mine, but I know that's true. You have a couple more slides to share with us, Beth, and then I think we'll have some time to take questions from the rest of the folks here.
Okay. And as I said, the other two of you pipe in anytime you want. Let me see if I can do the slide HUD here. The picture that's showing is from a tour of Avilion, which is a medieval role play sim that we visited not too long ago. You can see, it must have been last fall. I see by the sunflowers in there. A lot of places change the landscaping seasonally, which is really another way to promote immersion.
Interesting.
Okay, let me see if I can click these slides here.
There we go. Good.
Oh, we're going backwards. Okay. This was Rocca Sorrentino. Let me type that into. That's a historical sim that's run by some professional historians and librarians. And this is when we first got there on the ship. This is a toga party that we had. This was just for fun. Serena, of course, is a builder extraordinaire. She made this set just for this party. And we all had fun finding historically accurate costumes. Oh, by the way, we have free historical costumes available in the upstairs of our headquarters. I didn't put a picture of that up, but you can just visit the landmark, go into the building, and walk upstairs, and you'll see them. This is a presentation that Spiff did about the Anne Frank Museum that he's done in OpenSim. So we had a professional development session in Second Life about a different virtual world. He resed slideshows and pictures in different spots around the virtual parcel. So we walked around and looked at things. And then this is back to the meet and greet, the campfire.
Excellent.
That's all the slides I was able to put up here.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. We're done with our prepared questions, and I really appreciate everyone coming today. Do we have any questions from the audience for the panel? Okay, I think I'm hearing crickets. Oh, we do have one. Good. Professor Albatross. Okay, please go ahead.
I can answer that.
The question is there a regular meeting time, or does it vary based on the event?
It's usually Sunday night at 5 p.m. Second Life time, depending on our speaker. The last couple ones we've actually had from Europe, so they needed an earlier time slot, but we advertised that. But in general, 5 p.m. SL time, we'll either have a tour or a meet and greet.
Okay, awesome. And is the name of the Virtual Pioneers group, can you post that in chat also?
Sure.
Would you like me to weigh in on the Professor Albatross question?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Oh,
I was
okay.
my avatar I haven't perfected the 360-degree camera yet, so my avatar was facing out toward the audience. So please go ahead.
Yeah, so the question is, how do we have time for all these free structure activities when we really do have an amount of standardized objectives we must get to? And, you're definitely speaking my language there, and it has been a question along the way. I've asked myself, and needless to say, colleagues have asked me. And when we go into any of our open sim adventures, our starting point, and I, always, when Spiff and I were building these, my starting point was always, let's talk about the standards. Let's talk about what standards we're meeting. And the my example can be the Frank Lloyd Wright project. It started with the standards and the objectives. Let me look at my Common Core standards. What are we meeting? And it was amazing as I sat down and truly evaluated the standards. There were 14 Common Core standards that were embedded within the project, because it began with a research component. They researched Frank Lloyd Wright. They had note-taking that they had to do. I'm more of a curriculum shouter, but they had, the different skills that they had to do involving research, and then step number 2 was, how does this fit into the objectives? Social studies standards, what are we looking at? When we're looking at time, place, and environment, and local community, and things like that. And then we continued with the project. So we really did, from the very beginning, talk about what standards are we meeting with Common Core. And then after that, and what was truly marvelous, was to overlay STEM standards and look at, oh my goodness, look at the STEM standards that this project meets as well. So, it was layer upon layer of standards that were built in. So, and it was important to me because I'm kind of seen as that crazy cat lady in the back of the building, and I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to have a wonderful, principal that really lets me be the cat lady doing whatever it is I'm going to do. But I do back myself up. I always make sure that, it is aligned with my curriculum for ELA. My students had to do a report they did a PowerPoint slide changer, and on every single slide they had to explain, and there's my explanatory writing, they had to explain what was the element that they included in their Frank Lloyd Wright home. How does it demonstrate or represent something that Frank Lloyd Wright would incorporate in his work? What vocabulary are you using, to support that? Are you using the writing structures and the writing language that corresponds with being explanatory writing? Are you using transition words? So it was all very rich. It wasn't just, oh, go build something. That's going to look really cool. And yay, I'm proud of you, Johnny. It wasn't like that at all. It was so thick and rich with standards and STEM and Common Core. So I'm talking way too fast for our transcribers, and I'm sorry, but this gets me excited.
Well, enthusiasm is what makes educational magic work. So I really enjoy your energy and enthusiasm. Thank you, Daisy. Do we have any other? I'm going to come back and ask the panelists for any sort of final comments or follow-up points they'd like to make. But before we do that, any other questions? Sheila had asked, what kind of places do Virtual Pioneers target for tours? Spiff, would you like to take that?
Sure, as I'm in mid-change here. Really, the only, I guess, defining rubric we use is historically, we try and make them as historically accurate as possible. So, and if it's not, if it's more along the lines of a whimsical themed, with history kind of blended in, we just try and make sure everyone knows that. But in most cases, we really look for more authentic builds. I hope that answers that.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Beth. Daisy May suggested no changing in public, and what does Spiff do? Obviously, he's one of those people who's willing to sort of jump in and give it a try. Any final questions from the audience here? Yes, he's a pioneer, absolutely. Okay, so last comments, starting with Beth, if you could, any, we had one question. Do you blog your trips? From Merlin.
We try and
But
post
can-
out through Google Plus and through the website, but
Okay.
I originally started a blog, but it just got carried away. It's difficult
takes-
to keep up with it all.
Yeah, I think I've gone through 3 cycles of I want to blog, and I'm going to do it every so often, and then evidently that I'm not able to keep up with that because of too many other shiny things going on. So, last comments then. Let's start with Beth. Is there anything else that you would have liked to have talked about that we didn't talk about, or that you'd like to expand upon?
Is it my turn?
Yes, start with Beth, please. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to paste the link for the Google Plus community into chat.
Okay, great.
That's right here. That's not an open community. I think you have to request access to it, but just let us know or make sure your profile shows something about your interest in education and virtual worlds. If your profile is completely blank, then I'll just assume it's a griefer and ignore it. Let's see. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to explore like this in virtual worlds and to get to know so many people who are doing so many incredible, amazing things in education with their students. It's really inspiring. And I'd like to thank especially Spiff and Daisy May and Serena, of course, who is off on a well-deserved vacation, for all of the inspiration and help and everything. Thank you.
Awesome. Excellent. Daisy May, and any final comments or things that you wish we would have talked about we didn't get a chance to?
Nothing really that I wish we'd talked about. You've been so thorough, and everybody's been so attentive. And I'm going to join the thank you bandwagon because Serena, of course, is simply amazing. Beth, you are simply amazing, and all the things that you do. And of course, our fearless leader, Spiff, giving us, really encouraging me. I might have been the more recalcitrant one when it came to virtual pioneers and just like, oh, I've got grading to do. I really don't have time for this. But, going on and learning and seeing and exploring. And so, big thanks to Spiff for really kind of tugging me along because I've learned so much through all of these experiences.
Awesome. Wonderful. And so now it's time for the fearless leader here. Spiff, any last comments and things that you'd like to add?
Well, a great thanks to you, JB. You did a great job. Thanks to everyone for coming out. Virtual Worlds Best Practices Conference is really a great place, I think, for all of us to get recharged and push some new ideas and get some thoughts and connect again. So thanks to all the hard work that goes into this committee. Please, for those of you who are interested in coming out for our tours, 5 p.m. SL time. We always welcome newbies. You can come and go as you please. There's no attendance. We just like people to come and contribute and join us on our tours. And again, I hope you'll connect with us in social network fashion and come to our website and come to our tours. We're really a fun-loving bunch that really likes to learn and explore. So thank you, everyone.
Excellent. Did you have a blog that you wanted to post also, Spiff? The Open
Yeah, I do. For anyone who's doing some really creative stuff out there and wants to come and chat with me, I have what's called the Coffee with the Geek blog that I interview teachers using Google Hangouts. So I'd love to chat with anyone who'd like to chat with me. So I'll post that in the script as well.
You're going to put that in chat? Excellent.
Yeah, I'll put it in chat.
Good. Okay. Well, I think we're done. And you get, let's see how my math is. You get a little bit, almost 18 minutes back on your schedule. Thank you for coming, everybody. I really enjoyed it. And thank you to Beth and Daisy May and to Spiff. It was, I think, a great, worked out okay. We did okay. Thank you. Awesome.